Hi, welcome back to All American Tractor Works. I'm Greg Mipps. Today we're going to try to put together one of our axles and see if we can get it reinstalled on the tractor. So I'm starting off down here at my press again. We got to get the bearings onto the axle. So I think the easiest way to do this is going to be to press the bearings on the axle, this one bearing, and then install the axle with this bearing into the casing and then put the other bearing in the other end. So if you remember when we took this apart, I kind of had a tough time with my press because it isn't quite tall enough for the axle. So I brought in some 4x4s here. I'm hoping it'll get the bearing up high enough to where I can get the axle pressed in to the bearing and we can move on with this. So let's give it a try. Let's see what I can do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little of our gear oil in here on the bearing, and hopefully that will help it with going on. I'm just going to set this on the side here for now. Grab my nice lightweight axle. Let me set this up here. I'm going to have to kind of do something that's a little unorthodox. Because this press isn't tall enough, I'm not going to be able to use this pin to push down. I'm actually going to have to use the angle iron here. And I'm hoping it'll just give us enough pressure to do it. So here's hoping that this works. This is already giving me trouble. It probably wouldn't be so bad if the axle didn't weigh about 100,000 pounds. Oh, I got the wrong bearing. That's the problem. Let me get the correct bearing. That's the first thing that helps. Make sure you have the right bearing. This is the one, just so that we're clear on it. This is the one that has the cap on the back side. That's going to go in toward the casing. The bearing side will go out toward the bearing cap so that the grease will push out and exit that way and it won't go into the casing. So let's get this, a little bit of gear oil on it. And I need this to go that way. Want to make sure that we press it on the right way. Let's grab our lightweight axle here. There's the need for that extra arm that I don't have. There we go. This is just going to be a wrestling match right to the very end, I can tell. All right. I'm just going to give it a little bit of gear oil in around here. A little extra something as it pushes in, hopefully. I think we're in good position. Hopefully this will just slide in real nice. Famous last words, right? Okay, let's see what we can get here. I have this center support in this, and it's going to bottom out on that, so I'm only going to be able to go too far, and I think I'm there now. So I have to raise back up, and I got a couple pieces of 2x material here that I'm hoping, if I can raise this up all the way, I can sneak these guys under here. And that gave us a bunch more space. And I think enough space now to where we can press it in the rest of the way. Like I said, this is kind of unorthodox because I'm not pressing out of the center of the press, but it's what I got to do to make this work, because I don't want to drive this bearing on if I can all avoid it. You can hear how it's fighting it going in. I think it is there. Yep, we're there. Okay. Pull this stuff out of here. And I always fear when I get to this point that I pressed it on the wrong way. But I actually think I have it correct. There we go. You can see it's now pressed on. And now we can take and insert this into the axle housing. So here I am back at my rolling workbench. I have my axle housing here, my axle with the bearing pressed on it. Now the plan is to insert this axle into the axle housing here and seat the bearing in this end. And then hopefully we can drive the outer bearing on and capture this whole thing in here. So let me grab my oil. I'm just going to put a little gear oil in here on the surface where the bearing goes in. Hopefully that'll help us to get it in there. All right. This is going to be tricky because it needs to go in square and it's going to be tough to line it up. I may have to take, as I'm doing this, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take and set this on the ground so I can stand it up. I'm going to put a couple 4x4s under the end so that the axle has room to go down and see if I can drive it in that way. So let me get that set up. I think that's going to be easier. All right, so I got it on 4x4s here. I think this will be easier. And I'm going to need more than a 4x4, it looks like. Yeah, I got this wrong again. I'm going from the wrong way. I'm an idiot. So first things first, have your axle housing set in the right direction. See, I told you I get messed up, and I have pictures and drawings of how all this stuff goes together, and I still can't get it right. Now let's see if we can do it. Let's put it in the right way. Yeah, I'm getting there, bear with me. There we go. That's better. Ah, look at that. Went right in for us. Excellent. It helps when you have the axle housing in the right direction. So what we can do now is I'll take and we'll put it back up on the table. We'll see if we can drive the other bearing in from the other side. So let me get that back up on the table for us. All right, so I got it up onto my bench here. That was not easy. It weighed a few pounds. Let me take and put some oil on the inside here. I think I already did, but a little more is not going to hurt it. So this is going to be the trick. Drive this one on and not drive the other one out. It looks like it might go on pretty simple. Let's just see if we can give it some light taps around the outside. Going in pretty easy. There we go. It just dropped in real nice. It did drive this one out a little bit. I think what we'll do is, before I try to drive this in more, is let me take and put my axle cap together, and we can put that on that end. That'll give us some resistance on that side to push against. So let me get that all ready to put in on the other side. So we're over here at the workbench now at my vise. We're just going to use the vise to press this in. And I've got my bearing cap here. I have my felt washer that I'm not going to replace. I'm going to reuse the old one. It's in pretty good shape. No reason to replace it, I felt. They're not cheap either. So I'm just going to reuse this. And then I have my brand new seal that will go in. First thing that we do is the felt washer goes in. And hopefully you guys can see that. It goes in that little indentation in there. Make sure it's all the way down. And then our seal, I'm just going to put a little lube on the outside of it real quick. I can get the oil to come out here. Just to help it hopefully slide in there a little easier. And that's going to go like so. Let me wipe my hands off. And I'm going to grab, to make this a little easier, I'm going to grab a 2x4 just so I have a little more surface area pushing on that seal when we close it up in the vise here. So make sure it's going in evenly. It's going in cockeyed on me here. I need to push this edge in. Another thing you just need to take your time on. Be careful, you don't want to ruin your seal. Kind of went in sideways on me. There we go. Now I think we're evening back up. So I got the seal pretty well started, but because it sinks down below this lip, I'm going to see if I have I think I have something over at my press. Went over to my press and got this piece of scrap metal that I have. I always hang on to my pieces of scrap metal. You never know when you might need them, like in this case, because it fits right down in there. going in a little cockeyed on me, so I'm just going to take my time, push it in little by little as evenly as I possibly can. We don't want to crush it. I'm just going to put a little bit more pressure down here because I think the bottom needs to go in a little bit better. Yep. And there we go. Our seal is in. Our felt washer's in there. We're ready to put this bearing cap on. So, we're back at the rolling workbench. I have my new gasket, our axle retainer that we just pressed the seal into with the felt washer. And I have my 4 pieces of hardware, my bolts. And now the question is to make sure that if you look at this, it has a downside to it. So I have to make sure that I put this on the correct way. So I'm gonna have to go do a little research and make sure that I put it on the correct way. So give me 1 second to check that out. So I figured out which way this goes. Took me a couple minutes, but this is the bottom. This is the right axle. This is going to be the bottom, and this is the top. So I need this to go down. And I want to say there was an F right here, and I'm guessing that that stands for forward or front. And that would be, this bottom side would be headed toward the front of the tractor. So I'm pretty sure I got it right, even though every time I have a 50-50 chance of getting it right, I get it wrong. But I'm going to go with what I've got now. So let's slide this guy on here. I'm gonna, before I do that, just so I don't beat my seal up putting it on, I'm just gonna put a little bit of oil on the lip of that seal, help it slide along the axle. I did clean the axles up real nice. I just want to make sure that I don't beat that seal up if I can all avoid it. And it's being a stinker already wanting to go on. There we go. I want to crush my gasket. And we'll just bring it down. Make sure that we're pointed in the right direction. Again, try not to crush the gasket. Got my bolts here with their lock washers ready to go. We'll take and finger tight these on. And I hope I have this correct, because I'm going to be really upset if I go to install this and I find out I have to turn it around. But I think I have it right. Get a wrench to tighten those up. Weren't sure if they were 9/16 or ½ inch. They are 9/16. So I did chase all of these holes with a tap when I was cleaning this. It was all part of my cleaning regimen that I do. And even having chased them, the bolts still need a little help going in sometimes, but that's all right. They're going in easy. I'm not cross-threaded or anything like that. All right, and that just sucked itself in. And I'll bring these down the rest by hand as much as I can. And I'm not going to crank on them right now. I'm just going to bring them down snug. I just want it to hold that bearing in there so we can drive against this cap when we go to put the bearing in. So my bearing's still in here. So back here on the other end, remember we put this bearing in, it just didn't want to go in all the way. So I'm just going to go around and just tap it in with my dead blow. I don't have anything big enough to fit over this to drive it in, so this is what I have to do. And it's going in. Just going to grab a hammer here and just tap this around, make sure that it's in. And I believe we are there. So now that we've got this in, everything turns nice and smooth. And we have our bearing retainers that go in here as well. And I don't think it matters where they go. You can put them any direction. I'm going to look in the book real quick and see if they have any reference on it. It looks like in the book they have them top and bottom. So I'm just going to replicate what's in the book because I figure if you do what's in the book, hopefully you can never go wrong. So let me get these guys started here. If I can get them started. And I hope you all noticed that I don't have my gray sweatshirt on today. Continuing to give you a break from that. Instead I have my horrible blue sweatshirt on. This is just about a notch better than the gray one. Not so much stuff stuck to it, but don't worry, the gray sweatshirt will be back. I can promise you that. It is not gone. All right, so I'm just gonna take and put these in with the wrench here. Just bring them down snug. I'm not gonna crank on them just yet. Okay, now we'll put the top side in. This actually went together a lot easier than I pictured it going together. I didn't think the bearings would slide in as easily as they did, so that was a nice surprise. Like I said before, never having restored an International before, a lot of this is all new to me. This is my first time. And you can see all the little surprises and intricacies that we come across as we do it. All right, so I got those snagged. I got them tightened down, just hand tight. I don't think I need to torque them. There's no load on the bearing, but I'm going to get a better wrench than this. It'll give me a little bit more leverage. I'm going to go get a breaker bar just so I can get some torque on them. All right, let's snug these guys up. And back here. And last one. There, that's good and tight now. I'm just going to check it. It spins nice and easy, just like it's supposed to. Exactly what we want. There's no noise in the bearings. We are all good to go. Now, the one thing I did not do is I did not put any oil in this ball bearing here, so I'm going to see if I can't dump a little bit in there now and rotate that around. I did not put any in on this backside because it gets greased, and I will make sure that we grease it real well. I probably could have taken and packed it kind of like you do a roller bearing, but the grease will get in there pretty good. I'm not too worried about that at all. It's lubricated. It'll be fine. All right, the only thing that we got left to do is I got our grease fitting here. You can see it, it goes in the top of the axle cap. I'm just gonna take and put it in over here. I'm sure you guys all know what one looks like and what I'm doing and where it goes. So I'm just gonna screw that in there. I'm just gonna grab a wrench. And I gotta grab the right size wrench. 7/16, not 1/2 inch. And I'm just gonna take and put that guy in there. All right, grease fittings in, everything's assembled. This axle is ready to go back on the tractor. I think the one last thing I'm gonna do is I am gonna take and shoot some grease in here now, just in case I forget, because it's happened before. So I'm just gonna lube this up with some grease and it'll be ready to put on the tractor. I'm gonna rig it up on my engine lift because I cannot lift this anymore. It'll help us installing it. So let me get that set up and we'll be back over at the transmission putting this axle in.